Hey, Pastor Steve Waldron, I hope you're having a great or an incredible day or night. Thank you so much for being with us. Check out our other videos here on the channel. Got a few thousand, but a lot of different subjects, a lot of different playlists. So please check them out, share with your friends and family. Hey, we're going to be looking at corruptions in supposedly two of the older manuscripts, Codexes, Sinaiticus and Vaticanus. Wonderful Will Kinney, what a great scholar he is. We're on brandplucked.com. So let's take a look and examine these two things that have really taken what Westcott and Hort said was a vile Textus Receptus, put it on the back burner, and created all kinds of modern confusion and Bible babble of modern Bible versions, the Polyscriptura, no final authority. So, Sinaiticus and Vaticanus. Dean John William Burgon, read his books. They're phenomenal, even though they're 140 years old. Personally collated Sinaiticus and examined the Vaticanus manuscript in his book, The Revision Revised, which he wrote in 1881, the year the revised version came out. He gives his opinion and lists numerous examples of the textual blunders found in these two manuscripts. People who criticize Burgon, I'm like, have you ever read the man? I don't see how you can criticize him. He is amazing with firsthand knowledge, not just epitaphs and firsthand, mountaintop views, but when you get down to the nitty gritty, he's got the receipts. So Burgon states on page 11, singular to relate Vaticanus and Aleph, that's another name for Sinaiticus, have within the last 20 years established a tyrannical ascendance over the imagination of the critics. That's true. Tischendorf especially, besides Westcott and Hort, which can only be fitly spoken of as a blind superstition. It matters nothing that they are discovered on careful scrutiny to differ essentially not only from 99 out of 100 of the whole body of extant manuscripts besides. So, 99 out of 100 manuscripts are almost identical. And then you've got these two manuscripts that come up that don't agree amongst themselves, Sinaiticus and Vaticanus, and that Kurt Olland and Barbara Olland says 37.1% different in the New Testament than the traditional text. So what gives? Did God preserve his word or not? Are we trying to, with evolutionary theory, trying to rediscover it through the so-called science of textual criticism, which is just a made-up science? So, but even from one another, they're different. In the Gospels alone, Vaticanus is found to omit 2,877 words, to add 536 words, to substitute 935, to transpose 2,098. I mean, they just get it wrong. To modify 1,132. In all, 7,578 alterations in Vaticanus. And that's just in the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Corresponding figures for Aleph or Sinaiticus being 3,455 words omitted, 839 added, 1,114 substituted, 2,299 transposed, 1,265 modified, and all 8,972. And be it remembered that the omissions, additions, substitutions, transpositions, and modifications are by no means the same in both. This is one of his more spectacular, accurate statements that he's really known for. It is, in fact, easier to find two consecutive verses in which these two manuscripts, Sinaiticus and Vaticanus, differ from one another than two consecutive verses in which they entirely agree. So they make all these thousands of changes, almost 10,000 in each, and they don't even agree on the changes. And this is just in 3 books of the Bible. 4. I think he includes John in there as well. I know John's a gospel, but sometimes they put that in another category. On page 319, Burgon remarks, in the Gospels alone, Vaticanus has 589 readings, quite peculiar to itself, affecting 858 words, while Sinaiticus has 1,460 such readings, affecting 2,640 words. And now we know, that Sinaiticus is a forgery. In his book, Revision Revised, Dean Burgon wrote over 100 years ago concerning the ages of Codices Vatican B and Sinai Aleph. So lastly, we suspect that these two manuscripts are indebted for their preservation. Remember, he had examined them both solely to their ascertained evil character. Nobody used them. Probably Vaticanus was going to be used as a palimpsest over in the Byzantine Empire. When it fell, it shows up at the Vatican. So which has occasioned that the one eventually found its way 4 centuries ago to a forgotten shelf in the Vatican Library, and it was so bad nobody used it, while the other, after exercising the ingenuity of several generations of critical correctors, eventually, such as 1844, got deposited in the waste paper basket of the convent at the foot of Mount Sinai. Even if it was real, they were going to burn it, even though vellum doesn't burn, so that story really doesn't make any sense. Had B, Vaticanus, and Aleph Sinaiticus been copies of average purity, they must long since have shared the inevitable fate of books which are freely used and highly prized. Namely, they would have fallen in decadence and disappeared from sight. So even if they are old, it's because nobody used them. In short, these two codices are old simply because, first, they were written on extremely expensive and durable antelope skins, and secondly, they were so full of errors, alterations, and deletions that they were never used by true believers and seldom even by their own custodians. Thus, they had little chance of wearing away. So Hermann Hoskier, I've got this, also has written a 2-volume set called Codex B and its Allies, a study and an indictment. Hoskier, Hermann Charles, 1864 to 1938, was thorough and scholarly work, can now be seen online. In it, he documents many of the 4,000 or more differences that exist just between these two oldest and best manuscripts. Also, there's actually a Wikipedia page dedicated to that, but it doesn't have every one of them, but you can look that up. The purpose of this article is to give you just a few of the many examples of just how contradictory and confusing these two oldest and best manuscripts, so-called, they're not, really are when contrasted with the traditional Greek text that underlies the King James Bible 1611. Literally thousands of words have been omitted from the KJV text, primarily on the basis of Sinaiticus or Vaticanus, and Westcott and Hort would say Vaticanus totally. And so the text we have today in the Nestle's, Allen, and UBS is almost Vaticanus. Yet the modern versions, almost, there's exceptions, follow no discernible or logical pattern as to when they decide to include or exclude readings from one or the other. And that's 100% true, even by Metzger, Allen, Martini's own words. It's basically like a Gomer Pyle episode where they, okay, we'll include this one, because they differ amongst themselves. For several concrete examples of how Sinaiticus and Vaticanus differ from one another and how critical text versions keep changing from one version to the next, he's got a book of Romans that you can look up on brandplucked.webs, Romans. So, God willing, tomorrow we're going to zero in on Sinaiticus by itself and look at just some of the strangenesses there. And this isn't even the modern David Daniels and those guys, sort of the Lord folks, that have just eviscerated it and shown that it is in fact a forgery. So God bless. Thanks for being here. Join us daily. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.